So this slide is about the cardiac cycle. And so we're going to go, it's kind of like tracing the blood through the heart, but now we're going to talk about pressure. And when the heart contracts, the atria contract at the same time and the ventricles contract at the same time. And we'll go over how that's controlled on the next slide. So we're going to start. This is the best slide I found. It's a really good slide. It breaks it down really nicely. Let's start with the atria contracting. So there's two key terms that are used. There's systole and diastole. Diastole is when the chamber is relaxed and not contracting, and systole is when the heart muscle is contracting. And if the word is just used by itself, systole, it's referring to the ventricles. But a better way of doing it is like this slide does, is talk about the atrial systole and diastole and the ventricular systole and diastole. So let's start with the first phase right here, the very first. So think of it as one, two, three, four, kind of like five sections. And kind of like tracing the blood through the heart, it doesn't really matter where you start, but I like where this slide starts. Let's start with the atria going into systole. Both the left and the right are contracting, and that increases the pressure, obviously, in those chambers, and the blood flows into the ventricle. Now I like to think of it in slow motion because there's two ventricular systole phases. In the beginning phase, the ventricles begin to contract. As they begin to contract, the pressure is going up. As the pressure goes up, it closes the AV valves. And there's a moment in time now where the chamber is totally closed. Both the semilunars and the AVs are closed, and the pressure continues to go up as the ventricle contracts. Eventually, the pressure in the ventricle exceeds the pressure in the pulmonary artery and the aorta. And when that occurs, the semilunar valves open and the blood is pushed into those arteries. So that's the ending phase of ventricular systole. When this is going on, the atria have been in diastole. As the ventricles go into diastole and start to relax, the pressure goes down. And when that occurs, it closes the semilunar valves because of the way they're designed. The ventricle begins to relax even more, even more, even more. And then when the pressure in the ventricle is less than the pressure in the atria, the AV valves pop open and blood starts going into the ventricles just passively because the pressure in the atria is higher than in the ventricles. And now we're right back to the beginning again. The atria now are going to start going into systole. So any remaining blood that's in there moves into the ventricle, and then the ventricles go into its systole.